I'm Tyler Anderson, 27, the forgotten son in a family of perfect daughters. For 17 years, my sisters were the stars while I was the stagehand, cook, and emotional punching bag. Yesterday, Mom called about tomorrow's family dinner. "Tyler, just watch the kids while we celebrate," she said, not even asking. "They don't realize this dinner will be their last celebration, at least with me in the role they've written. I've finally found my voice." Before I share my story, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever been the family underdog. Growing up as the only boy among 3 beautiful, talented sisters was like being an extra in a movie about someone else's life. Catherine, Lauren, and Amanda were always center stage, while I learned to blend into the background. Catherine, now 32, was the brilliant one. By age 7, she was already reading at a high school level and winning science fairs with projects my parents swore she created entirely on her own, though I'd witnessed Dad's late-night guidance sessions. Lauren, now 30, was our family's creative force, playing 3 instruments and landing lead roles in every school production. Amanda, just a year older than me at 28, was the charismatic one who could sell ice to polar bears, literally once convincing our neighbor to buy her already melting snow cones in the middle of winter. I tried finding my own spotlight. When I brought home straight A's in 4th grade, Mom nodded absently while gushing over Catherine's acceptance into a weekend program for gifted students. When I made the junior varsity basketball team as a freshman, Dad said, "That's nice," before returning to his animated discussion about Lauren's callback for a national commercial. The chore assignments started innocently enough. "Tyler, help your mother with the dishes," Dad would say while my sisters scattered to their rooms to practice their various talents. But soon, helping became my full-time job. I remember being 10 years old, standing on a step stool in our kitchen, browning ground beef for tacos while my sisters prepared for their dance recital. Mom fluttered between them, adjusting Catherine's hair, steaming Lauren's costume, and applying Amanda's makeup. "Mom," I called out, "should I add the seasoning now?" She appeared briefly, distracted. Yes. Just follow the package instructions. You're such a good helper." Then she disappeared back upstairs. When Dad came home, he found me setting the table. "Where's everyone else?" "Getting ready," I replied. He ruffled my hair, the only physical affection I usually received. "Thanks for picking up the slack, buddy." Later, when I asked why I had so many more chores than my sisters, Mom gave me a response that would become her mantra. "Girls need more support in this world, Tyler. One day you'll understand." Dad witnessed these conversations but never contradicted her. Sometimes he'd slip me an extra $5 or let me stay up late playing video games, small compensations that never addressed the fundamental imbalance in our home. My 12th birthday crystallized my place in the family hierarchy. It fell on the same day as Amanda's dance competition. I woke up expecting at least some acknowledgement, but breakfast was a rushed affair focused on Amanda's nerves. Mom promised we'd celebrate when they returned, but they didn't get home until nearly midnight. By then, I'd made myself a box cake and blown out candles alone. The next morning, there was a hastily wrapped present on the kitchen table, a generic sports biography Mom had clearly grabbed from the gas station on their way home. Meanwhile, Amanda's room was decorated with a new trophy and dozens of congratulatory cards from relatives. The only person who seemed to truly see me was our neighbor, Marcus Hayes. A retired high school principal, Mr. Hayes would invite me over to help with yard work, but unlike my parents, he'd actually teach me things and listen to my thoughts. "You've got a good head on your shoulders, Tyler," he told me once while we repaired his fence. "Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise." "But I'm not special like my sisters," I admitted. He set down his hammer and looked me straight in the eyes. "That's nonsense. You're thoughtful, hardworking, and kind. Those qualities will take you further in life than any talent show trophy." Those moments with Mr. Hayes sustained me, providing glimpses of what proper mentorship felt like. But they couldn't override the daily message at home: my sisters were exceptional, and I was the support staff. By the time I turned 13, our family roles were firmly established. Catherine, Lauren, and Amanda were the Anderson family stars. I was the stagehand who made their performances possible, invisible until something needed fixing, feeding, or cleaning. High school should have been my escape, but instead, it solidified my role as the family servant. While my sisters had been encouraged to join clubs, pursue passions, and build their college resumes, I was expected to rush home to start dinner and tackle the mounting household chores. My servant status was never officially announced. It evolved naturally, like water finding the path of least resistance. Each morning, I'd wake up an hour earlier than everyone else to unload the dishwasher, start the laundry, and prepare breakfast. By the time my sisters emerged, perfectly coiffed and ready for their days, I'd already packed their lunches and laid out their belongings. "Tyler, did you iron my white blouse?" Catherine would ask without looking up from her phone. "It's hanging in your closet," I'd reply automatically. "You're a lifesaver," she'd say, the closest thing to gratitude I ever received. The demands grew more substantial as my sisters aged. When Catherine began applying to medical schools, she enlisted me as her personal research assistant. "I need comprehensive profiles on these 20 programs by Friday," she announced, dropping a list on my desk while I was studying for my own exams. "Focus on acceptance rates, research opportunities, and notable alumni." When I pointed out that I had midterms, she scoffed. "It's just high school, Tyler. This is my future we're talking about." Lauren was equally demanding but more manipulative. During her college years, she regularly called home with emergencies that required my assistance. "I can't possibly write this ethics paper and prepare for mock trial," she complained during one late-night call. "Just draft something for me, you know, the usual format. I'll polish it later." The polishing rarely happened. Once, I recognized a paper I'd written word for word in a scholarly journal she'd been published in. When I confronted her, she laughed. "No one would believe you anyway. Besides, you should be proud to contribute to the family success." Amanda, despite being closest to me in age, was perhaps the most callous. During her senior year, she entered a young entrepreneur's competition with a business model I'd developed over months at our kitchen table. I'd shared my ideas with her casually, never suspecting she claimed them as her own. "It just needed some refinement," she said when I discovered her submission form. "You weren't going to do anything with it anyway." She won first place and a $5,000 scholarship. Our parents threw her a celebration dinner. I cooked and served it. The scholarship incident paled compared to the day I missed my interview for a prestigious summer program because Lauren needed a ride to an unexpected audition. I'd prepared for weeks, arranging transportation and practicing answers. But when Lauren burst into my room that morning, frantic about her once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Mom didn't hesitate. "You need to help your sister, Tyler. You can reschedule your thing." I couldn't reschedule. The position went to someone else. My high school graduation should have been my moment. I'd finished fourth in my class despite my domestic responsibilities and limited study time. But the ceremony coincided with Amanda's acceptance of an internship in New York. My parents attended my graduation but spent the entire time on their phones, coordinating Amanda's travel arrangements. During the reception, they left early to take her shopping for professional attire. That night, alone in our backyard, I finally spoke up. "Do you even care about my accomplishments?" I asked when they returned. Mom looked genuinely confused. "Of course we do, honey. But Amanda's opportunity is so significant for her career." "And what about my career? My future?" Dad patted my shoulder awkwardly. "You'll be fine, son. You always are." That was the problem. I was always fine, resilient enough to withstand neglect, responsible enough to handle adult burdens, and invisible enough that my needs never registered as urgent. The final humiliation of my teenage years came when I discovered my sisters had found my journal. I'd kept it hidden beneath my mattress, documenting instances of unfairness and occasionally venting my frustrations. One evening, I overheard them in Catherine's room, reading passages aloud and laughing. "Listen to this," Catherine snickered. "Sometimes I wonder if Mom and Dad would notice if I disappeared." "So dramatic," Lauren chimed in. "What about this? Spent 3 hours helping Amanda with her project. She didn't even say thank you. Sorry we don't throw parades for basic decency." Something broke in me that day. I retrieved my journal, tore out the used pages, and started a new kind of documentation. Meticulous, factual records of every task performed, every hour spent in service to my family, every instance of credit stolen. No emotions, just evidence. I didn't know how or when, but someday, this record would matter. My only relief during these years came from my friendship with Brian Wilson, who I met in AP Physics. Unlike others who saw only my achievements or usefulness, Brian recognized the dysfunction in my family's situation. "You know this isn't normal, right?" he asked after witnessing a particularly demanding phone call from Catherine. "It's just family stuff," I deflected. "No, man. It's exploitation." Brian's bluntness was refreshing. "My sister and I bicker, but we're equals. What your family does to you, that's something else." Brian's perspective was the first crack in the narrative I'd accepted all my life. Maybe I wasn't just the supportive son doing his part. Maybe I was being used. College represented my first real chance at freedom. I'd been accepted to State University with a partial scholarship, not enough to cover everything, but a start. I approached my parents about financial support, armed with spreadsheets showing tuition costs and living expenses. "We'll help however we can," Dad said vaguely, but Mom quickly tempered expectations. "We've already committed to Catherine's medical school loans, Lauren's law school applications, and Amanda's business startup," she explained. "Our resources are stretched thin." The subtext was clear: my education was a luxury, not a priority. Meanwhile, Catherine's Manhattan apartment, Lauren's study abroad program, and Amanda's seed money were considered essential investments. I enrolled anyway, determined to make it work. Within 2 weeks, I'd secured 3 part-time jobs: morning shifts at a campus cafe, evening work at the library, and weekend hours at a local hardware store. Between classes and work, I averaged 5 hours of sleep nightly. Despite the physical distance, my sister's demands continued unabated. Catherine needed tech support for her online medical databases at all hours. "You've always been good with computers," she'd say, as if acknowledging my skill excused the imposition. Lauren constantly requested legal research for her assignments. "Just basic case summaries," she'd insist. "It'll take you an hour, tops." Those hours added up, stealing time from my own studies. Amanda was the most relentless, sending business plans for review and expecting comprehensive feedback. "You're practically getting a free business education through me," she once said when I protested the workload. Weekend visits home, which I initially limited to once monthly, devolved into marathon chore sessions. I'd arrive Friday evening to a list of tasks: yard work, household repairs, deep cleaning. By Sunday night, I'd return to campus exhausted, with barely enough energy to complete my own assignments. My graduation day epitomized the pattern of my life. I'd managed to complete a double major in computer science and business administration, graduating with honors despite my fragmented attention. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Saturday in May. I'd reserved 4 seats, for Mom, Dad, Mr. Hayes, and Brian. The night before, Mom called. "Tyler, we're so sorry, but we won't be able to make it tomorrow. Amanda is receiving the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award in Chicago, and we need to be there for support. You understand, right?" I did understand, all too well. In their value system, Amanda's recognition would always outweigh mine. Mr. Hayes and Brian witnessed me accept my diploma, 2 empty seats beside them speaking volumes about my family's priorities. My first job offer came from a tech startup in Seattle, 3,000 miles from my family. The distance was intentional. I found an affordable 1-bedroom apartment, and for the first time, experienced what normal adult life could be, coming home to a space that wasn't filled with others' demands, setting my own schedule, and pursuing my own interests. Yet even with the physical distance, the emotional tethers remained. Sunday phone calls with Mom inevitably included small favors, researching vacation destinations for the family, creating digital photo albums of my sister's accomplishments, or troubleshooting Dad's computer issues remotely. I might have continued in this pattern indefinitely if not for Sarah Collins, a project manager I met through work. Our friendship evolved naturally through lunch breaks and team outings, but it wasn't until she visited my apartment that the dynamic of my family life came into focus. She noticed me stepping away to take a call from Lauren, returning 30 minutes later after walking her through a presentation template. "Does that happen often?" Sarah asked. "What? Your sister calling for free consulting during your personal time?" I shrugged. "It's just family stuff." Sarah's expression softened. "Tyler, I have 3 siblings too. We help each other, but it goes both ways. When was the last time one of your sisters helped you with anything?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable because the answer was too revealing: never. With Sarah's gentle encouragement, I began seeing Dr. Reynolds, a therapist specializing in family dynamics. During our first session, I minimized my experiences, uncomfortable with applying terms like emotional abuse to my family. "I wasn't beaten or starved," I insisted. "My parents provided for my basic needs. Emotional neglect can be just as damaging as physical abuse," Dr. Reynolds explained. "Children need more than food and shelter. They need recognition, encouragement, and fair treatment." Over several months of therapy, I began recognizing patterns I'd normalized: the constant prioritization of my sister's needs, the expectation of service without reciprocity, and the subtle messaging that I was somehow less valuable than my siblings. "Your family created a narrative where your role is to support others' success without claiming any for yourself," Dr. Reynolds observed. "Until you challenge that narrative, nothing will change." The truth of her words was undeniable, but the prospect of confronting my family terrified me. They were masters of dismissal and deflection. Any attempt to address the imbalance would be twisted into evidence of my selfishness or ingratitude. So I continued living a divided life, independent professional by day, family support staff by night and weekend. The arrangement was unsustainable, and something would eventually have to give. My 27th birthday arrived with the usual silence from my family. No calls, no cards, not even a text message acknowledging the day. I'd stopped expecting celebration years ago, but the complete absence of recognition still stung. That evening, as I nursed a solitary beer in my apartment, my phone exploded with notifications. The family group chat, normally dormant unless someone needed something from me, suddenly overflowed with excitement. Catherine had gotten engaged. I stared at the screen, watching congratulatory messages pour in from relatives who hadn't bothered to wish me happy birthday. My parents announced they were hosting an impromptu engagement dinner that weekend and expected everyone's attendance. "Tyler, we'll need your help with preparations," Mom texted separately. "Can you fly in Thursday instead of Friday? There's so much to do." The request came without acknowledgement of my birthday or consideration for my work schedule. Just another assumption that I would drop everything for family priorities. Against my better judgment, I requested the additional day off and flew home Thursday morning. What followed was 72 hours of nonstop labor. I deep cleaned the house, assembled rental furniture, prepared food for 30 people, created a photo slideshow of Catherine and her fiancé, and troubleshot technical issues with the sound system. The night before the engagement party, while testing the backyard lighting, I felt a strange lightheadedness. I'd been running on minimal sleep and hadn't eaten properly in days. The ground seemed to tilt beneath me, and then, nothing. I woke up in the hospital with an IV in my arm and Sarah sitting beside me. She'd flown in to surprise me for my birthday, arriving at my parents' house just as I collapsed from exhaustion and dehydration. "Your family brought you to the emergency room," she explained. "But they left once the doctor said you were stable." Catherine didn't want to disrupt her engagement weekend. Something in her voice made me ask, What aren't you telling me? Sarah hesitated. Your mom asked if I could stay with you so they could get back to the preparations. When I suggested postponing the party, she said you'd be devastated if your little episode ruined Catherine's special day. The hospital kept me overnight for observation. During those quiet hours, with only Sarah and the occasional nurse for company, I had my first genuine epiphany. My family wouldn't change because they had no incentive to change. The current arrangement benefited them perfectly. The engagement party proceeded without me. My parents sent a generic, "Feel better" text alongside photos of the celebration. Not one family member visited me in the hospital. After my discharge, Sarah stayed an extra day to ensure I was okay. We sat in my childhood bedroom, now serving as Catherine's storage space for wedding magazines and sample invitation suites. You deserve better than this, Tyler, Sarah said quietly. I know, I replied, and for the first time, I truly did know. Upon returning to Seattle, I made an emergency appointment with Dr. Reynolds. I need to set boundaries with my family, I declared. Real ones, not just the temporary limits I've tried before. That's significant progress, she acknowledged. What's changed? I realize they'll take everything I'm willing to give, my time, my energy, my health, without a second thought. And they'll never stop taking unless I stop giving. With Dr. Reynolds' guidance, I drafted clear boundaries. No more free technical support, no more last-minute travel demands, no more unpaid labor. I communicated these changes in a carefully worded email to my entire family. The response was swift and predictable. Mom called in tears, insisting I was abandoning them during such an important time. Dad expressed disappointment in my newfound selfishness. My sisters bombarded me with accusatory texts, Catherine threatening to exclude me from her wedding if I didn't get over whatever this is. I held firm for nearly a month, declining requests and enforcing my stated boundaries. Then came the call that would ultimately change everything. Tyler, we're having a special family dinner next weekend, Mom announced. Catherine has big news about the wedding venue. Lauren's making partner at her firm, and Amanda's business is expanding internationally. That's wonderful, I said cautiously. I'm happy for them. So you'll fly in Friday? The dinner's Saturday evening. Oh, and the girls are bringing their kids, so we'll need you to watch them during the adult celebration. Not a request, an expectation. No consideration for my schedule or preferences. Just another assumption that I existed to facilitate others' enjoyment. Actually, Mom, I don't think. Tyler Anderson, she interrupted, her voice sharp. This is not optional. This is family. You've been so difficult lately, and frankly, we've all had enough. Be here Friday. She hung up before I could respond. Standing in my apartment, phone still in hand, I experienced perfect clarity. Nothing would change because my family fundamentally didn't see me as a full person with legitimate needs and desires. In their narrative, I was a supporting character whose purpose was to advance the main character's stories. It was time to rewrite that narrative. If this dinner was to be another celebration of my sister's achievements while I played babysitter in the kitchen, then it would also be something else. My last performance in the role they'd assigned me. The week before the family dinner, I approached my planning with the same methodical attention I'd given to my sister's needs all these years. But this time, my effort would serve my own liberation. First, I gathered evidence of the long-standing pattern of exploitation. The journal I'd maintained since high school provided years of documented incidents, dates, times, and specific demands. I organized these entries chronologically, highlighting particularly egregious examples: the scholarship interview I'd missed for Lauren's audition, the business idea Amanda had stolen, the countless holidays and birthdays spent serving rather than celebrating. Next, I compiled financial records demonstrating the inequality of family support. I created a spreadsheet detailing my parents' contributions to each child's education and early adult life: Catherine's medical school tuition, Lauren's law school expenses, Amanda's business startup capital, and the minimal support I'd received. The disparity was stark when presented visually, bar graphs showing tens of thousands of dollars directed toward my sisters compared to the meager assistance offered to me. The digital evidence was equally damning. I had saved texts, emails, and voicemails showcasing the one-sided nature of our relationships. Catherine's demanding messages about technical support, Lauren's requests for legal research, Amanda's expectations of business advice, all without acknowledgement of my time or expertise. I organized these communications by sister, creating a clear pattern of entitlement from each. For the past 3 months, I'd also been recording video diaries after particularly draining family interactions. These raw, emotional testimonials captured the immediate psychological impact of their behavior, something easily dismissed in retrospect but undeniable in the moment. During a video call with Dr. Reynolds, I outlined my plan for confrontation. "I'm not looking to hurt them," I explained. "I just need them to see the reality of our dynamic. Confrontation can be healthy when approached constructively." She agreed. "But be prepared for defensive reactions. People rarely accept unflattering truths about themselves without resistance. And if they refuse to acknowledge the problem, then you'll have a different decision to make about what kind of relationship, if any, you want moving forward." The possibility of estrangement was painful but increasingly appeared necessary for my well-being. To prepare for this potential outcome, I secured a new opportunity, a promotion within my company that would require relocation to their Boston office. I hadn't accepted yet but had negotiated a generous relocation package and starting bonus. The position would begin in 2 weeks, conveniently timed after the family dinner. I spent a weekend preparing my apartment for potential quick departure, organizing important documents, and beginning preliminary packing. Sarah helped, offering both practical assistance and emotional support. "Are you sure about this?" she asked as we boxed up my books. "About confronting them?" "Yes." "About what comes after?" "Not entirely." I folded down a box flap. "But I'm sure I can't continue as I have been. Whatever happens, you're not alone," she reminded me. "Brian and I are here. Mr. Hayes is in your corner. You've built a support system outside your family." For the confrontation itself, I prepared a presentation, professional and factual rather than emotional. Using my skills from work, I created a simple but effective slideshow detailing my contributions to my sister's success over the years. The papers I'd written for Lauren that had advanced her academic career, the technical infrastructure I'd built for Catherine's medical research, the business strategies I'd developed for Amanda's company. Each slide included documentation proving my involvement and estimating the market value of my uncompensated work. I rehearsed my talking points with Sarah, who played devil's advocate, mimicking the dismissive responses I could expect from family members. "You're just jealous of our success," she said, channeling Catherine's typical deflection. "This isn't about jealousy," I practiced responding. "It's about recognition and reciprocity. I've supported your successes wholeheartedly. I'm asking for the same support in return." As a final precaution, I consulted with a lawyer friend of Brian's about potential fallout. Though unlikely, I wanted to protect myself against possible claims regarding the intellectual property I'd contributed to my sister's work over the years. "Based on what you've described, you're on solid ground," the lawyer assured me. "But document everything and be precise about your contributions versus theirs." The day before my flight home, I visited Mr. Hayes, who had retired to Seattle 2 years earlier, one of the factors that had influenced my job choice. Now in his 70s, he remained the wisest person I knew. We sat on his porch overlooking Puget Sound, and I shared my plans for the family dinner. "It sounds like you've thought this through carefully," he observed. "I have. But I'm still terrified." He nodded slowly. "Fear is appropriate when facing something this significant. But consider this, you've been managing your family's emotions your entire life, anticipating their needs, cushioning their disappointments. That skill didn't develop by accident, it developed because their emotions were prioritized above yours. And now I'm prioritizing my own," I said, understanding his point. "Exactly. It might feel unnatural, even wrong. That's how deeply ingrained these patterns become. He patted my hand. Remember, Tyler, healthy families want all members to thrive, not just select ones. That evening, I packed my suitcase and a small carry-on containing my documentation and presentation materials. As I prepared for bed, my phone chimed with a text from Mom. Don't forget to pick up the celebration cake on your way from the airport tomorrow. I've already ordered it under your name. No, please. No acknowledgement that I was doing them a favor. Just another demand. I didn't respond. Tomorrow would bring enough communication, perhaps the most honest exchange our family had ever experienced. The flight to my hometown felt like traveling toward an inevitable collision. I had activated the voice recorder on my phone before even leaving my apartment, determined to document whatever transpired. The weight of years of suppressed truths pressed against my chest, making it difficult to breathe normally. I bypassed the cake shop entirely and drove directly to my parents' house, arriving mid-afternoon on Friday. Mom opened the door, her smile faltering when she noticed my empty hands. "Where's the cake?" she asked, not bothering with a greeting. "I didn't pick it up," I replied calmly. "I came straight here." Her exasperation was immediate. "Tyler! Now I'll have to send your father. We have so much to do before tomorrow." "I'll help with dinner preparations," I offered, following her inside. "But I won't be babysitting tomorrow. I'll be joining the celebration." She stopped abruptly, turning to face me. "Don't start this again. The children need supervision, and you're the logical choice. Because I'm not important enough to be at the table? Because my time doesn't matter? Because you don't have children of your own?" She countered. "Your sisters deserve a break." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Catherine and her fiancé, followed closely by Lauren and her husband with their 2 children. Amanda appeared an hour later with her 3 kids in tow. The house quickly filled with noise, chaos, and the familiar dynamic of everyone talking over each other while I faded into the background. That evening, as I helped prepare dinner, I observed my sisters in their element, loud, confident, and completely self-absorbed. Catherine dominated conversation with wedding details. Lauren interjected with legal anecdotes designed to impress. Amanda checked her phone constantly, announcing each new international order her business received. Not once did anyone ask about my life, my work, or my well-being after the hospitalization they'd all conveniently forgotten. The next day unfolded according to the established family script. I was assigned breakfast duty for the entire household, 11 people including children. Afterward, I was tasked with cleaning the house for the evening's celebration, while my sisters took their children shopping. My parents left to retrieve Catherine's fiancé's parents from the airport. By late afternoon, everyone reconvened to prepare for the evening. As predicted, when the time came for the dinner celebration, Mom approached me with 5-year-old Emma and 3-year-old twins Jack and Lily. "The kids have had their dinner already," she informed me. "Just keep them entertained in the family room while we adults enjoy our meal. There's ice cream for dessert you can give them later." I looked at my nieces and nephew, who stared back with innocent expectation. They weren't responsible for their parents' behavior, but they had become unwitting pawns in the family dynamic. "Actually," I said, taking the children by their hands, "I think the kids would enjoy being part of the celebration too. Family dinner should include everyone, right?" Before Mom could protest, I led the children into the dining room, where the adults were already seated around an elegantly set table. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier, and floral centerpieces added a festive touch to the scene. "Tyler, what are you doing?" Catherine demanded as I helped Emma onto a chair. "Joining the celebration," I replied evenly, lifting the twins onto booster seats. "The children will disrupt everything," Lauren protested. "We specifically arranged for you to watch them." "You arranged," I corrected. "You didn't ask." Mom stood, her smile tight for the benefit of Catherine's future in-laws. "Tyler, please don't make a scene." "I'm not making a scene. I'm simply refusing to be excluded from yet another family event." Amanda's husband, unfamiliar with the subtext, attempted to diffuse the tension. There's plenty of room. We can all squeeze in. That's not the point. Amanda hissed. Tyler knows his role. The phrase, Tyler knows his role, crystallized everything wrong with our family dynamic. My role. The one they'd assigned without my consent, the one that kept me useful but invisible. I think it's time we discuss my role, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. In fact, I've prepared a presentation on that very topic. I retrieved my laptop from my bag and connected it to the television mounted on the dining room wall. The screen illuminated with my first slide, the unacknowledged contributions of Tyler Anderson. This is ridiculous. Catherine scoffed. Mom, make him stop. Tyler, we have guests. Dad warned, glancing nervously at Catherine's future in-laws. Perfect, I replied. Witnesses are exactly what this conversation needs. I began methodically presenting the evidence I'd compiled. First, the childhood pattern, photos of family events where my sisters were showcased while I remained in the background, often visibly responsible for documentation or service. From ages 8 to 18, I was assigned an average of 27 hours of household labor weekly. I explained, displaying a chart comparing my chore load to my sisters. During the same period, Catherine averaged 4 hours, Lauren 6, and Amanda 3. I moved through my college years, detailing the financial disparities in parental support. The bar graphs showed the stark contrast: tens of thousands for each sister, minimal assistance for me. I worked 3 jobs while maintaining a 3.8 GPA. I noted. Meanwhile, I continued providing unpaid labor to this family. Next came specific examples of intellectual and professional exploitation. I showed dated emails in which Lauren requested help with legal briefs, work I'd essentially completed for her. I displayed the business plan I'd created that became the foundation of Amanda's company. I presented the coding projects I'd developed for Catherine's medical research without credit. The market value of my uncompensated professional services over the past 5 years exceeds $70,000. I stated, revealing the final calculation. That doesn't include emotional labor, availability on demand, or travel expenses incurred fulfilling family obligations. Throughout my presentation, my family's expressions transformed from irritation to disbelief to growing anger. When I finished, the room remained silent for several seconds. Catherine recovered first. This is absolutely absurd. You're twisting everything to make yourself the victim. Am I? Everything I've presented is factual and documented. Lauren, the lawyer, attempted a different approach. We're your family, Tyler. Family helps each other. That's what you do. Help goes both ways in healthy families. I countered. When was the last time any of you helped me without expecting something in return? Amanda, always the most direct, cut to what she perceived as the heart of the matter. You're just jealous because we've all been successful while you've remained ordinary. I've achieved considerable success despite the constant drain on my resources. I corrected her. The difference is, I've never received recognition or support from this family for my accomplishments. Mom, visibly distressed by the public airing of family dynamics, attempted to regain control. Tyler, that's enough. You're embarrassing yourself and upsetting everyone. Please take the children to the other room as we discussed. No. The simple refusal hung in the air like a thunderclap. Excuse me? Dad interjected, finally finding his voice. I said no. I won't be relegated to the kitchen or the family room while you celebrate the accomplishments you've deemed worthy of acknowledgement. I won't continue providing free labor, professional services, or emotional support to people who can't even remember my birthday or visit me in the hospital. That's not fair. Catherine protested. I was planning my engagement party. Exactly. Your celebration took precedence over my health. That's the problem in a nutshell. I turned to address the entire table. I've accepted a new position in Boston. I'm moving next week. From this point forward, I'll be available to this family on the same terms you've been available to me, sporadically, conditionally, and with clear expectations of reciprocity. Mom's face crumpled. You're abandoning us? After everything we've done for you? The irony of her statement was so profound I almost laughed. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Please enlighten me. We raised you. We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head. You provided basic necessities, the legal minimum required of parents. Beyond that, you trained me to be a servant to this family's ambitions while neglecting my own. Dad, attempting to salvage the situation, adopted a conciliatory tone. Son, if you felt unappreciated, you should have said something. I did. Repeatedly. You dismissed my concerns as selfishness or assured me I would be fine because I always am. Being reliable shouldn't have made me invisible. Catherine's fiancé, clearly uncomfortable, whispered something to her. She nodded slightly before addressing me. If you feel this strongly, perhaps we should discuss this privately, as a family. We are discussing it as a family, I replied. Unless you're suggesting some family member's comfort matters more than others? Lauren, ever the strategist, changed tactics. What do you want from us, Tyler? An apology? Money? What's the endgame here? I want acknowledgement of the dynamic I've described. I want recognition of my contributions. Most importantly, I want a fundamental change in how this family operates moving forward. Amanda scoffed. So basically, you want us to walk on eggshells around your fragile ego. No, I want basic respect, the same consideration automatically extended to you three throughout our lives. I closed my laptop and looked directly at my parents. I'm willing to attempt a new relationship with this family, but only under certain conditions. First, professional family therapy with all of us participating. Second, clear boundaries regarding my time and resources. Third, reciprocal support for my goals and achievements. Mom wiped away tears, a mixture of anger and confusion on her face. I don't understand why you're doing this. We're your family. Yes, you are. And families should lift each other up, not use one member as a stepping stone for the others. I gathered my belongings. I'll be staying at a hotel tonight. You have my email if you wish to discuss moving forward with therapy. You can't just drop this bomb and leave, Catherine protested. Actually, I can. I've spent 17 years silently accommodating this family's demands. You can manage one evening processing what I've said. As I headed for the door, 5-year-old Emma called out. Uncle Tyler, aren't you staying for ice cream? I knelt to her level. Not tonight, sweetheart. But I promise we'll have ice cream together another time. Walking out of that house was simultaneously the most terrifying and liberating experience of my life. Behind me, I could hear the eruption of voices, accusations, denials, and the beginning of the family reckoning I'd initiated. I didn't look back. The hotel room offered a strange sanctuary, anonymous and temporary, much like the liminal space I now occupied between my old life and whatever came next. My phone buzzed incessantly for the first few hours after my departure, messages and calls flooding in from family members. I silenced the notifications, needing space to process the confrontation before engaging further. Around midnight, I finally reviewed the communications. Mom had sent a series of increasingly emotional texts, beginning with, "How could you embarrass us like that?" and evolving to, "Please call me when you're ready to apologize." Dad's single message read, "We should talk when things calm down." Catherine and Lauren had sent nearly identical accusations of selfishness and poor timing. Only Amanda's message hinted at something different. "I never realized how much you did for us." I responded to none of them that night, choosing instead to call Sarah and recount the evening's events. "How do you feel?" she asked after I'd finished. Exhausted. Relieved. Terrified. Proud. I laughed softly. All of the above. "You should be proud," she affirmed. "What you did took tremendous courage." The next morning, I checked out of the hotel and flew back to Seattle without informing my family. The following 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of packing, farewells, and preparation for my move to Boston. Throughout this period, communications from my family continued sporadically, gradually shifting from indignation to cautious inquiry about my plans. I maintained minimal contact, responding only to direct questions about my relocation. The emotional distance provided clarity I'd never experienced before. The constant background hum of family demands had been silenced, allowing me to hear my own thoughts uninterrupted. Boston welcomed me with unseasonably warm weather and a fresh start. My new apartment, smaller but brighter than my Seattle space, became a canvas for self-expression. I arranged furniture according to my preferences rather than practicality for guests. I hung artwork that spoke to me rather than bland pieces chosen to avoid commentary. Every decision, however small, represented a reclamation of agency. The initial loneliness was profound. Despite the dysfunction, my family had been a constant presence in my life. Their absence created a vacuum that echoed with uncertainty. During these moments of doubt, my support system proved invaluable. Sarah visited for a weekend, helping me explore my new neighborhood and filling my apartment with laughter. Brian called regularly, providing continuity from my Seattle life. Mr. Hayes sent handwritten letters full of wisdom and encouragement. Remember, he wrote in one particularly timely note, discomfort is the price of growth. The familiar, even when harmful, exerts a powerful gravitational pull. Resist it not by fighting but by building something better in its place. As Thanksgiving approached, my first major holiday away from family, the gravity Mr. Hayes described strengthened. Mom called 3 times in one day, leaving increasingly guilt-laden voicemails about my absence from their traditional gathering. The table won't be complete without you, she lamented in her final message. Your sisters are all bringing their special dishes. What am I supposed to tell everyone when they ask where you are? The old Tyler would have capitulated, booking a last-minute flight to avoid disappointing others. The new Tyler invited Sarah, Brian, and 2 work colleagues for a friendship-centered celebration instead. We cooked together, played games, and created new traditions unburdened by historical dynamics. When I shared this with Dr. Reynolds during our weekly video session, she noted the significance. You're building a chosen family, she observed. That's healthy independence, not isolation. The first genuine surprise came in early December when Amanda contacted me directly, not through the family group chat or with copied parents. I've been thinking about what you said, her message began. Looking back at my business origins, I can see how much of the foundational work was yours. I've never properly acknowledged that, let alone compensated you for it. I'd like to talk about making that right, if you're willing. Our subsequent conversation revealed a sister I barely recognized, receptive, reflective, and taking responsibility without deflection. She admitted that my confrontation had sparked uncomfortable self-examination. I built my identity around being self-made, she confessed. Acknowledging your contributions felt like diminishing my success. But that was selfishness, not truth. We negotiated formal recognition of my contributions to her company, including retroactive compensation and consulting credits. More valuable than the financial arrangement was the nascent authentic relationship developing between us, one based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. My parents attempted to resume old patterns despite the distance. Dad called with technology questions, Mom with requests to coordinate family gift exchanges. Each time, I enforced my boundaries calmly but firmly. I'm happy to help with your computer issue, Dad, but I'll need to schedule it around my commitments. Does Saturday morning work for you? Mom, I won't be organizing the family gift exchange this year. I'm sure Catherine or Lauren would be happy to take on that tradition. Each boundary enforcement was met with initial resistance followed by grudging adaptation. The pattern was consistent. They would test, I would hold firm, and gradually, a new dynamic would emerge. Christmas passed quietly. I declined the family gathering in favor of a local volunteer opportunity followed by dinner with new Boston friends. The expected guilt trips came, but their power had diminished considerably. I sent thoughtful gifts to my nieces and nephews, maintaining those innocent relationships while protecting my boundaries with their parents. The new year brought unexpected progress. Dad contacted me about family therapy, revealing he'd been attending individual sessions since our confrontation. I've been learning about family systems, he explained awkwardly. My therapist thinks joint sessions could help us establish healthier patterns. I agreed cautiously, suggesting a therapist in a neutral location. To my surprise, Dad attended the first session alone, neither Mom nor my sisters joining him. They're not ready, he admitted. But I am. During that session, my father spoke words I'd never expected to hear. I failed you as a parent. I saw what was happening but took the path of least resistance. I'm deeply sorry, Tyler. The simple acknowledgement broke something open between us, creating space for a relationship rebuilt on honesty rather than obligation. Catherine and Lauren maintained a distance, occasionally sending superficial updates, but avoiding any meaningful engagement with the issues I'd raised. Their resistance was predictable. They had benefited most from the family dynamic and thus had the most to lose by acknowledging its dysfunction. 6 months after my confrontation, Amanda visited Boston with her youngest child. Over dinner at my apartment, she observed, "You seem different, more confident." "I am different," I confirmed. "I'm discovering who I am when I'm not defined by what I do for others." "I envy that," she admitted. "Sometimes I wonder if any of us know who we are outside the roles we were assigned." That conversation marked a turning point in our sibling relationship, the first time we'd connected as equals rather than as server and served. My 1-year anniversary of independence arrived with reflection rather than celebration. In many ways, the year had been the most challenging of my life, full of difficult conversations, painful realizations, and the hard work of building an authentic identity. Yet it had also brought genuine connection, self-respect, and a growing sense of possibility. During this period, my relationship with Sarah evolved from friendship to something deeper. Her unwavering support throughout my family reconstruction had revealed her character in ways ordinary dating couldn't have. When she accepted a job offer in Boston, coincidentally, near my apartment, we acknowledged what had been developing between us. "You know, I fell for you long before you stood up to your family," she told me one evening. "But watching you reclaim your life confirmed everything I saw in you from the beginning." The second Thanksgiving after my confrontation brought another milestone. A small dinner gathering in my apartment with Sarah, Brian, visiting from Seattle, Mr. Hayes, who'd made the cross-country trip despite his age, and Amanda, who'd come alone specifically to continue our healing journey. As we shared the meal I'd prepared, not out of obligation but joy, I looked around at these people who valued me for myself rather than my usefulness. The contrast with my previous life couldn't have been starker. "A toast," Mr. Hayes proposed, raising his glass. "To Tyler, who had the courage to rewrite his story." Later, as Amanda helped me wash dishes, a small act of reciprocity that would have been unthinkable 2 years earlier, she asked, "Do you think Mom and Dad will ever really understand?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Dad's trying in his way. Mom's still waiting for things to go back to normal." "And Catherine and Lauren?" I shrugged. "They have the most invested in the old dynamic. Change threatens their understanding of themselves." "And me?" she asked quietly. "Do you forgive me?" I considered the question carefully. "Forgiveness isn't a single moment but a process. We're in that process, and it's going well. That's enough for now." Amanda nodded, accepting the honest answer rather than the easy one, another sign of our evolving relationship. That night, after everyone had gone, I sat alone in my living room, reflecting on the journey from servant to self-respect. The path hadn't been linear or easy. There had been setbacks, moments of doubt, and painful separations. Yet each step had been necessary, each boundary essential to my reconstruction. I hadn't sought to destroy my family but to transform my place within it. Some relationships had strengthened through that transformation, while others remained distant or strained. Both outcomes were valid parts of the process. The future remained unwritten. Perhaps Catherine and Lauren would eventually recognize the value of authentic connection over convenient exploitation. Perhaps Mom would one day understand that true family support flows in all directions. Or perhaps some relationships would remain forever changed, limited but honest. What mattered was that I no longer defined my worth through others' approval or demands. I had become the author of my own story rather than a character in someone else's. And that, ultimately, was the most important victory of all. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family expectations that weren't serving you? What boundaries have you created to protect your well-being? Leave a comment below sharing your experience. Your story might help someone else find their voice. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, you deserve to be more than someone else's supporting character. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage in writing your own.